أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise be to Allah. We seek His help and His forgiveness. We seek refuge with Allah from our own souls and our own bad deeds. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can lead astray. And whomsoever Allah leads astray, no one can guide. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, the one having no partner. And I bear witness that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a slave and messenger. O you who believe, fear Allah as He should be feared, and die not except in a state of Islam. O mankind, be fearful and dutiful to your Lord, who created you from a single person, and from him He created his wife, and from them both He created many men and women. And fear Allah through whom you demand your mutual rights, and do not cut the ties of kinship. Surely Allah is always watching over you. O you who believe, keep your duty to Allah and fear Him, and always speak the truth. So, inshallah, today we will be exploring one of the overarching themes of one of the most unique and beautiful surahs in the entire Quran. And it is so vast and so full of lessons that there is no way that we will even begin to scratch the surface on all the gems that it has to offer us. But I do want to speak on some actionable items and what's very pertinent to us about the main themes of the surah. And the surah I'm talking about today is Surah Yusuf. And it is very unique because it is one of the few surahs in the Quran that is told as in fully chronological order and that narrates a single story for the entire surah. Because most chapters in the Quran, they have many different lessons and stories and themes and anecdotes and such, and they're always of different times and not always in chronological order. But this is a story that's told from Allah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by extension us, in a very beautiful way that highlights the trials and tribulations of Yaqub alayhi salam and Yusuf alayhi salam, and how they began and where they ended up, and the beautiful character that they exemplified through it and what we can learn from it. And while we talk about the surah, I want you to think about that Allah's plan is always perfect and is always the one that will prevail. That no matter what we have planned, Allah's plan will prevail as He is the most perfect and best of planners. And that in this plan we have to have full trust and tawakkul in Allah. We have to understand that that what He has in store is best for us, and that even through hardship and difficulty and adversity, that we are always exemplifying that trust in Allah. And we will see that throughout in this entire surah. So, we know how the story of Yusuf alayhi salam begins. That he has a dream of all the celestial creations bowing down to him, and how Yaqub alayhi salam interprets it that his entire family will be prostrating to him, and implicating that Yusuf alayhi salam will be of a very high rank one day. And Yaqub was one of the prophets that was given the gift of being able to interpret dreams. But we also know that Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers were very, very jealous of him. To the point where they even said, "Uqtulu Yusufa." Let's kill Yusuf alayhi salam. And so one of them said, "La taqtulu Yusufa wa alquhu fi ghayabat al-jub." Let's not kill him, but let's throw him in a well. And that someone else will pick him up like a traveler or something, but he'll be out of our hair. Because their goal was to make it that they understood that he was a very special child and that he was very beloved. But they wanted their father's entire attention to be on them. So they didn't want Yusuf alayhi salam in the way. So what did they do? They convinced their father to let him, to go with them, to play with them. أَرْسِلْهُ مَعَنَا. That send him with us, to play with us. Like, you never let him come with us. And when he expressed concerns, they said that, no, we are a group of 11 people, we'll protect him. And when he went with them, they threw him in the well, and then they came back. They came back, وَجَاءُوا أَبَاهُمْ عِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ. They came back fake crying to their father in the evening. That, oh, something bad happened to Yusuf alayhi salam. And then Allah tells us, وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيسِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ قَالَ بَلْ سَوَلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَىٰ مَا تَصِفُونَ. That they came with a shirt with false blood. And Yaqub alayhi salam said that, surely your souls have tempted you into doing something evil. So I can only endure this pain with a beautiful patience, sabrun jameel. And I can only turn to Allah with help in what you have claimed. And it's very interesting to note that they came with a shirt of fake blood because the main concern that Yaqub alayhi salam said to them was, أَخَافُ أَن يَأْكُلَهُ الذِّئْبُ وَأَنْتُمْ عَنْهُ غَافِلُونَ. That I fear that while you all are being heedless of Yusuf, that a wolf will attack him. That a wolf will eat him. And they took that and ran with it and made that the excuse of what happened to Yusuf alayhi salam, that he was killed by a wolf. Right? So we need to understand, like, what is going on in this situation for Yaqub alayhi salam. That if we take this story and think about and put it in today's context, that a young boy is kidnapped by his own family and left for dead and then eventually sold into slavery, that's one of the most tragic stories that we can think of. And for a parent to have to go through that for their most beloved and one of their youngest children, that's horrifying. And on top of that, it wasn't done by a freak accident or something, it was done by his other sons. The ultimate betrayal. And how does he respond to it? Sabrun jameel, a beautiful patience or steadfastness. Right? And that he said, I can only turn to Allah with this difficulty that you have brought forth. And the trials and tribulations in our lives, I pray, are never this big. And for most of us, the majority of them are much, much more minute than this. But we ultimately have to turn to Allah in this time of difficulty. And understand that His plan is overarching and that He is the only one that we can turn to for relief. And that rather than get distant from Him, we have to become closer to Him to allow us to deal with such difficult situations. And furthermore, Yusuf alayhi salam ends up getting sold into slavery. But it was all part of the plan of Allah to develop him and who he's supposed to be. Allah tells us, وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِن مِّصْرَ لِامْرَأَتِهِ أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَنفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. And the one who bought Yusuf alayhi salam told his wife that take good care of him. He could be useful to us and we may even adopt him as a son. So Allah says that this is how we established Yusuf in the land of Egypt. And we taught him how to interpret dreams. Surely Allah is predominating over His affairs, but most people do not know. Allah is telling us this was all part of the plan. And that now Yusuf is in the place where he's supposed to be, and on top of that, he has learned the gift of his father that he had, which is one of the elements of his prophethood, being able to interpret dreams. And as we know the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, that will come into play much later to have a much greater impact. And Allah is always predominating over His plans. And we don't want to be part of the وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, the people who do not know, who are heedless, that Allah is the best of planners and that His plan is predominating. We want to be the ones who embrace it and have pure trust in Him. And then what happens next? And this is where the story starts to get very difficult for Yusuf alayhi salam, and he's thrown into a very difficult test with the wife of the one who bought him, who was very influential and a nobleman at the time, tries to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam because she was so taken by his beauty. And he resists. And ultimately, due to his resistance, because of their influence, he was thrown into prison. Even though he was found out in the surah to be tried as innocent. But because of the corruption of that time, he was still thrown into prison because of it. And it even shows the extent of how beautiful he was that the other women in the community were kind of gossiping about this lady for how she let herself fall so low to go after someone that was working for her, essentially. So what she did is that she brought Yusuf ﷺ in front of all these people, and they said, قُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَلَكٌ كَرِيمٌ. That by Allah, this is not a human, this is truly a beautiful and noble angel. That they were also so taken by his beauty, and they understood how she was so tempted by him. But then we have to see the response of Yusuf ﷺ. That he has finally gotten where he's supposed to be. Learned the interpretation of dreams. He's establishing himself in the land. And now this comes up. That he is being punished for doing the right thing. But what does he say? And this is very profound because we have to understand that he is still a human being. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن وأكن من الجاهلين فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن إنه هو السميع العليم. That he says, oh Allah, I love prison more than what the temptations that I am being called to. And that if you did not turn me away from it, I would have fallen into it. And Allah says we listen to his prayer and we turn him away from it. Indeed, Allah is the all-knowing, all-hearing. Yusuf said that he loves prison more than this temptation. The level of integrity and discipline that he's displaying. But understand that he's not immune to such temptations. What did he say? He said, if Allah did not protect me, I would have fallen into it. And earlier in the surah, when we're talking about the attempts of the Aziz's wife to seduce Yusuf ﷺ, it says, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا أَرَّهَا بُرْهَانَ رَبِّي. That she desired him. And he would have desired her had it not been essentially for the protection of Allah. And that he could have fallen into such temptations if he did not have the discipline and integrity and taqwa in Allah. And ultimately, the trust in Allah to have what is better for him in store. Now, how can we act on this? We may be in situations where we have an undesirable alternative in the dunya, when we are being presented with a better option, but it may have haram elements to it or be completely haram. And this may be in a business venture where we are foregoing a lot of profit to stay and stick with what is halal, or any situation where we may have to take advantage of someone else to get ahead, but ultimately we have to understand that what is in store for us if we do not take that will always be much better for us in this dunya and on the Day of Judgment. Because the deeper we fall into sin, Allah opens more sin to us, and sin only brings more stress and difficulty in life as well, even though it may not be immediate. Just to understand the integrity of Yusuf ﷺ right here, and work to exemplify it, especially in adversity. Because all he had to do to not spend so much time in prison was fall into this temptation. But he was still steadfast in it and trusting in Allah's plan. And then we go on to his time in prison. And what does he do? He is asked by the inmates that are with him to interpret their dreams. And alhamdulillah, at this point, it also shows his character, that he is a prophet of Allah and he didn't forget his mission. So he tells them that I'll interpret your dreams for you, but first preaches Islam to them. And how does the one true religion. And once again, it shows his beautiful character and morals, and him not deviating from his mission despite all the adversity he's facing. And how we can also try our best to implement even a fraction of that. But ultimately, he tells one inmate that they are destined to be freed and end up working for the king, and the other one is set for execution. And he tells the inmate who's supposed to be working for the king that mention this talent that I have to your master, as a way that he could get out of prison and utilize his talents to help the nation. But Shaitan made this person forget, and he ended up spending a few more extra years in jail. But then eventually, we all know the dream that the king ended up having of the 7 skinny cows eating the fat cows and the wilted crops. And he asked for an interpretation of this dream. And then this prisoner remembered that Yusuf alayhi salam has this ability. He went to him. Yusuf alayhi salam interpreted the dream for him. And then, وَقَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِي بِهِ. The king says, bring Yusuf alayhi salam to me. This is it. This is Yusuf alayhi salam's salvation. Through his talents and what he knows, he's going to get out of jail free. But what did he say? فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُ الرَّسُولُ قَالَ ارْجِعْ إِلَى رَبِّكَ فَاسْأَلْ مَا بَالُ النِّسْوَةِ اللَّاتِي قَطَّعْنَا أَيْدِيَهُنَّ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ بِكَيْدِهِنَّ عَلِيمٌ. He told the messenger that came that have the king call basically a council of all the women in the community and have them tell the truth. He wanted his name to be cleared. He didn't just want to get out of prison because he could get out of prison. He wanted to maintain his reputation, his honor, and his dignity. And those are very sacred in Islam and a very sacred part of the individual. And we may be tested with that being compromised. We must always hold on to it. And we must always fight to preserve it. And that is exactly what Yusuf alayhi salam did. And he didn't just want to get out of jail because he could, but he wanted to get out of jail with the entire world knowing that it was because of his innocence. That he did not commit the crime that he is in jail for. And ultimately they did confess and he was absolved of his crimes, absolved of his conviction rather, and elevated to a very high position of taking care of the food supply. Because what interpretation did he give? That there would be 7 years of prosperity and then 7 years of a very harsh famine. And he was in charge of coming up with the plan to preserve the grain so that the entire nation may survive during the difficult years. And that was because of his interpretation. And ultimately, do we see where he started? At the bottom of a well, a scared boy, to one of the noblemen of Egypt, leading the survival of the entire nation. And that is a beautiful way that Allah's plan has come into fruition. And now for the further lessons that we have in the surah, I'll just be summarizing them and not quoting the ayat because we're running out of time. But essentially later on, we learn that his brothers come, and ultimately Yusuf alayhi salam slips one of a goblet that he had into Binyamin, the other youngest brother of son of Yaqub alayhi salam, into his bag so that he is tried as a thief so that he can stay with Yusuf alayhi salam. And once again the brothers go back without Binyamin. Now think of what Yaqub alayhi salam is feeling. This is the second time. The first time that they took Yusuf alayhi salam, he lost his most beloved son. And now he's losing his youngest son, Binyamin. And once again, he says that he has فَصَبْرٌ jameel. And once again, the brothers ask him, why do you keep complaining about Yusuf? And what does he say? قَالَ إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. That I only complain to Allah. And I know that which you do not know. He's showing us how to make dua to Allah. And that we can complain to Allah and that He is the only one that we should be turning to. And we may think that, it's a sign of ungratefulness if I complain to Allah, but no. He is the one that we should be complaining to, not the rest of the creation. He is the one that can help us. So we can talk to Him and say, Ya Allah. Allah knows our situation, but it is a way of getting close with our Creator that we talk to our Creator. And we beg for relief of whatever we are in. Because while we are suffering and we want it to end, we still have trust in Allah and His ultimate plan. And then, as the story progresses, Yusuf alayhi salam shows his triumphance over over his brothers. And he still forgives them. لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. There will be no blame or harm upon you today. And he gives them a shirt and says to rub it on Yaqub alayhi salam's eyes, and he will get his sight back, because he was in so much anguish he lost his eyesight. And that the entire family was reunited again. And when he meets his father, he tells him that, look, this was the vision, because everyone ended up bowing down to him because he's a nobleman. And he said, look, this is the vision in the very beginning of the surah that's coming into fruition now. And he thanks Allah for all that Allah has given him and prays that he dies amongst the Muslims and raised with the righteous. And we have to understand this is a very beautiful turn of events of how Yusuf alayhi salam has ended up in such dire situations, and Yaqub alayhi salam, and ultimately come out with so much dignity and honor and power and authority and success from Allah. Because if we think about, look how it all came together. Had he never been betrayed by his brothers, he would have ended up in Egypt. And had he never gone through those tests, he never would have been fortified to be a prophet and lead a nation. And if he wasn't in the prison at that time, he never would have been there to interpret the dream. And if that dream was never interpreted, the famine would have taken out all of Egypt. Everyone would have perished. So him being there and this plan saved thousands and thousands of lives and started the existence of the children of Israel and Musa alayhi salam, and that entire legacy started with this plan of Allah. So it was never superfluous. It was always had a purpose. And we may think it meandered a lot, but it was all to prepare Yusuf for what was to come so that he may be able to complete his mission out, which he did. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم. Invoke your Lord for forgiveness. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. And when we look at this beautiful story of victory and adversity of these two prophets, we can parallel that with the revelation of Surah Nasr to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where at the end of his mission, it's one of the last surahs revealed, and it talks about how the help and victory come from Allah, and that now you will see people entering Islam into droves. And when he started out, it was a handful of people being persecuted for their beliefs and the utmost hardship. But Allah is showing him that I've completed my promise of victory for you. And it may have been very difficult to see in those difficult moments of hardship, but we must always trust Allah's plan and always turn to Him. And have integrity like Yusuf alayhi salam did, by not trying to take the easy way out by giving into our temptations, but staying steadfast in the hardship, knowing that Allah has something better planned for us. There's a beautiful hadith by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لكل شيء حقيقة وما بلغ عبد حقيقة الإيمان حتى يعلم أن ما أصابه لم يكن ليخطئه وما أخطأه لم يكن ليصيبه. That everything has a reality, and that a believer will not understand the true reality of Islam until he realizes that everything that was supposed to have happened to him would never have missed him, and everything that was supposed to have missed him would never have happened to him. And that is the ultimate relief of stress in our lives. That if something was not meant to be, no matter how hard we try to chase it, whether it be a school acceptance, a job, a promotion, anything, no matter what we do, it was never going to happen to us. And no matter how hard we try to avoid something, if it is meant to happen to us, it will never miss us. Because the plan of Allah is overarching. So ultimately, what we can do is have pure trust in Allah and stay disciplined and have integrity to our own morals in that process as well. And it will develop a very true bond with Allah, and a very pure one, and one that we can exemplify with dua and these characteristics that we have seen with these prophets and this beautiful story. I pray that Allah make us amongst the mutawakkilin, and the ones that always have true faith and trust in Him and never question His plan. And that we have the strongest level of taqwa, and that we will reach ascend to the highest level of Jannatul Firdaus. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا آتنا ما وعدتنا على رسولك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت فإنه تقضي ولا يقضى عليك فإنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل وغلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وقم الصلاة. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وكأين من آية في السماوات والأرض يمرون عليها وهم عنها معرضون وما يؤمن أكثرهم بالله إلا وهم مشركون. أفأمنوا أن تأتيهم غاشية من عذاب الله أو تأتيهم الساعة بغتة ولا هم يشعرون وهم لا يشعرون. قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وما أرسلنا من قبلك إلا رجالا نوحي إليهم من أهل القرى أفلم يسيروا في الأرض فينظروا كيف كان عاقبة الذين من قبلهم ولدار الآخرة خير للذين اتقوا أفلا تعقلون حتى إذا استيأس الرسل وظنوا أنهم قد كذبوا جاءهم نصرنا فنجي من نشاء ولا يرد بأسنا عن القوم المجرمين لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة لأولي الألباب ما كان حديثا يفترى ولكن تصديق الذي بين يديه وتفصيل كل شيء وهدى ورحمة لقوم يؤمنون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum. Just a quick few announcements, inshallah. The session for Mufti Kamani is going to be on December the 3rd after Aisha. And then he has another session on December the 4th, which is Saturday at 10 a.m. And please note that the Quran Connection session number 10, registration has started. And it starts... It is started now. It starts on November the 29th. So if you want your children to be part of this program, which is a program that helps them build how to read the Quran, to get them into a higher program such as memorization or Hafiz program, this is a program that they can get into in order to read, to know how to read the Quran, inshallah. And then there is every Friday at 10:30 for kids age 1 to 5. There's a new program at ICGC. It's called Story Time. You can please find the details on the newsletter for registration. And then the youth has their own Friendsgiving event on Tuesday, November the 23rd. Please check the newsletter for more details as well. As always, Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.